Business Magazine.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Must be a hectic time.
It is.
So, are you considering some of the strategy of actually opening up the cafeterias and letting the kids come in, sort of that sort of thing?
Well, again, we're really interested in creative solutions, but we want to maintain the social distancing strategies. So one of the issues around the child nutrition program, the waiver that we actually were successful at getting, there are these congregation rules, if you will, that actually in a traditional kind of model, students actually have to be fed in a congregational style, meaning like in groups. So that has actually been relaxed, which is really helpful. And so opening the cafeteria in that way would actually, we would just be concerned that we weren't maintaining the social distancing criteria that we're really trying to enact to address this public health crisis. And that's why some of the pieces that I was talking about in terms of grab-and-go bagged lunches, schools have the option of providing the 2 meals because it's breakfast and lunch at the same time, so that families only have to show up once per day to get those. We're also working on specific guidance for our after-school programs who also serve healthy, nutritious meals through the child nutrition program, and that will be coming out forthcoming very soon as well, that guidance.
Can you just run through the options that you were telling me about earlier for student meals?
Sure. Some of the options would be different variations of a grab-and-go system. You could, a particular school or district could set up kind of a drive-through so that they can maintain distance between family member picking up in a car and the provider. It could be a walk-up. Grab and go, again, maintaining a certain perimeter for social distancing. And I had just mentioned that the rules are relaxed in terms of allowing these pickups to be both breakfast and lunch at the same time. That's a relaxation of the usual rules where you have to serve 1 meal only at a time.
And some of the, you were saying some of the buses could be used to perhaps deliver more?
Some districts have started to wonder, could we use our busing system to actually deliver meals. We also, as I'm aware, of course, have our National Guard ready to serve. It might be that we think about using those in certain communities as well. A lot of this will depend on what works for the particular community, and most communities will probably end up having a variety of different models or methods that they're doing to ensure that students are fed and healthy.
So I'm sorry, John. You want to?
Oh, well, I was going to say the other big issue is teachers have children, and how do they do their online learning while and prepare that course instruction while they've got kids at home and dealing with everything else of being a parent?
Yeah, I think that's a really key piece of why we actually, in addition to making sure we have the health needs met, as Dr. Levine said, it's another reason why we needed this period of time to give our systems at the local level a bit of a moment to breathe and figure out how they're going to actually, what is the educator's day going to look like now. And so there will certainly have to be some flexibility. What that looks like, we don't really know yet. There will, again, probably be different models for that. We do know that, as Governor Scott said, teachers will be paid and our staff and schools will be paid. And that's important to get out there. So there isn't kind of a one-size-fits-all at this point about how to address that really good question. We would, at this point, really leave that up to, again, district leaders to figure out what works best for their local system. But of course, if districts are interested in some ideas and sort of what we're learning about nationally, please, they should contact us and we can work that through with them.
And I guess my only question is really, so we talk about sort of this dual, half online, kind of half packets. Logistically, kind of in smaller rural communities, maybe like the Northeast Kingdom, how would that work, kind of distributing these packets, putting them together? I mean, is that the district, or sort of what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I also want to clarify, I'm not sure I said half. in
Oh.
half, but perhaps I did. It might end up being an entirely offline system, so that students or families are actually, just like we did the grab and go nutrition, they're actually coming regularly to pick up a packet of work. So again, I think most places are probably trying to think about moving to a fully online, or at least partial online, which may be half online. It might be 3/4. And the real issue will be trying to really figure out where are those pieces where students are not going to have access to that kind of an education, both in terms of some of our students because of geographic or other demographic kinds of challenges, not having internet in their direct domicile, those kinds of things. And then also, as I said a little bit earlier, ensuring that when services are provided for all students, then we have to make sure that services are provided for all students, including our students on IEPs or 504 plans. And that's the piece about ensuring free and appropriate public education.
Are you prepared to have some slippage in educational quality and student performance?
Well, I think that's one of our biggest concerns. We know, for instance, that across the summer, when schools are typically all dismissed, that we do see some slippage or some backwards movement in terms of educational skills and knowledge retained. So that's very salient and very important to us, and why we're kind of mobilizing to try and minimize that. This is a very stressful time for families and for educators because they all know that, and we're doing our very best to make sure that we are ameliorating that as much as we can. This will be a big transition, though, for students as well. They're used to coming to their schools and socializing and seeing their teachers, and we'll be moving to at least the new short-term normal, and we'll all have to be thinking about these issues and continuing to provide our best assistance as we move forward.
So, as I understand, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, para-educators, other hourly workers will still be paid. They'll still be
That is
working.
my understanding, correct. And if you think about, for instance, folks who are working in the cafeterias, they're still going to be very much needed because we have to provide food for our students, just as we always have.
And but there'll still be capacity there. Para-educators, bus drivers, others will be available to do other things, or perhaps continue in some other different way from what they're doing.
Absolutely, and I would envision, as Governor Scott mentioned, that there will be some work for everyone to do. It might be very different than what they were doing before, but certainly paraeducators, if they were working with students who had been on an IEP or a 504 plan, for instance, would certainly be part of that planning for that particular student in terms of what the new plan for continuity of education services looks like.